Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of my sometimes daily podcast, Fire for Effect, where I just riff on some of the things going on in today's headlines. I am Will Selber, the owner of Grumpy Combat Veteran Media, also known as Colonel Selber, retired, also known as many derogatory names, but that's all right. We welcome everybody here. Grumpy combat veterans, sad combat veterans, hey, even the occasional happy ones. But do me a favor, man. Give us 5 stars, share what you hear if you like it. Hey, if you don't, you want to piss off one of your enemies, I say you should do that too. But times are tough here. We scraping by. This is all the money we make is on any type of paid subscription. For a paid subscription, you get quite a bit of content that's going to be coming out in July. Right now, we are having everything open, no paywall. Everybody's going to get to read everything you got for the next month while I'm focusing on my memoirs. While I do that and I'm been a little sick, that doesn't mean the news stops. And unfortunately, President Trump, and no surprise to me, instituted an executive order now known as the Muslim ban. If you didn't like the first one, believe me, you're not going to like the second one. Our incredible intern, we have our GCV media intern, Miss Jillian Butler, or Jill, and she is also helping us write press releases for the Afghan American Veterans Alliance. And I'll put our links if you want to make a donation, because all of our money goes directly to help Afghans here in the United States who are vetted and trusted. These are Afghan security force members who have already been vetted multiple times because they actually trained in the United States. So I'm just going to read from her, basically summarizing. There was an executive order today on the 9th. It pertains to 19 different countries to prevent people from immigrants and non-immigrants to traveling from Afghanistan to the United States. There is a provision for special immigrant visas to continue to travel here. We are grateful for that. Hey, look, it's better than zero. But obviously, by closing this out, you close a chapter on the book for many, many people, those who are coming in that are Afghan allies, commandos, pilots, civil society members, thousands upon thousands of Afghan allies who've been left behind, people who work here, they're the ones that are going to be really facing this going forward. And the people that work here have family members, some of them back in the rear or back trapped behind enemy lines, if I may. We I'm not surprised by this. I'm angry about it, but I would just say a couple of things. First, if you're a GWAT vet or you're an Afghan combat veteran or whatever, this isn't your fault. Let me just say right off the bat, this isn't your fault. This is These are things that happen outside of your control. Now, that's something hard to hear, but we can all do the great things and we can try to make the arguments to the Trump administration. But at the end of the day, the American people elected this man office. I didn't like it, but hey, look, live by the sword. You know how it goes. I would just say for the President Trump and his supporters, I understand that you have legitimate concerns. I think they're overwrought uh, about domestic terrorism in the United States. Let's not, mince words that there have been one or two Afghans who've gotten into trouble. There has been an Afghan who was indicted on a terrorism charge. I believe it was last year for an attack on the National Days headquarters. I think it was in Oklahoma City. I might be getting that all wrong. My apologies. But if we just say nothing's bad has happened, then we're being dishonest. Of course, there's going to be problems with diaspora refugees that come into the United States because they predominantly get placed in low economic areas with not a lot of economic opportunity. But I bet if you looked at this percentage rate, that Afghans are probably just as good or bad as anybody else, and they're probably working just as hard. And I would just say that for a lot of recent refugees that come in, or immigrants, or whatever the proper terminology is, cutting the refugee money for these people, for these services, is just going to make it harder for them to thrive. Now, this doesn't really pertain to the executive order, but at this point in time, I would just say we have to focus on those that are here. We have the SIVs. We can continue to cajole and talk about, that this is not great, that a lot of Afghans aren't going to make it. And that's very, very true. And I am 100% disagreement with the President Trump over this decisions. But I think it's time that we admit that maybe some of the background checks, the vetting isn't 100%. I have been involved in background checks, so please, please spare me. These people that do background checks, they are not experts in the region. Most of the time, they're just bureaucrats putting numbers and names into databases, and I won't get into how it works, but they're not experts, and that's not a fault of their own. They're not asked to be experts, but there are other ways to go about vetting people than other than the American government way. And if the American government, especially Kosh Patel, would think outside the box, and say what you will about Kosh Patel, but I heard he's an outside the box thinker, then I would just really question using a database to make these determinations, especially if you have inside of this country Afghan general officers, former intelligence officers who have bled and killed for this country. I think that you can trust them that if you have questions on people, that these are actually the exact type of people who, if you asked, they can call the village where the guy came from and they can get the information. Because if you're using the American government, I just would say that they're clumsy, they're not swift, they don't use precision, and they're kind of they kind of like drunks stumbling around all over the place, right? No disrespect. I used to work for the federal government. I would just caution the President Trump and his administration. Look, I understand that you're concerned. There have been domestic terror attacks. There's two anti-Semitic attacks that just took place. There's been a lot of bombings of fertility clinic by an anti-natalist. I would just say that, we have a domestic terrorism problem of all stripes from one end to the S. There's a lot of pissed off people in this country with now a YouTube that can tell you how to make a car bomb. So look, I would say that the old ways of trying to do this through federal law enforcement is going to be really, really difficult in today's media environment where you cannot be everywhere and you need really good people who understand this problem set. And I would just argue that I don't care how good the FBI is, I don't care how good their agents are, they can't be everywhere. They just can't. And they're pushing the very people who could help them by lumping them all together. The vast majority of Muslims, the vast majority of Afghans, I'll just go Afghans, Muslims, I'm sure is just the same, want to just be here. They want to thrive. They want to succeed. And if given the opportunity, they will succeed. Doesn't mean all of them will. It's hard to succeed in America, okay? This is a difficult place. Imagine coming to this place from nowhere that's like this, right? 180 degrees different. So I think when we talk about what's going on with President Trump, I think the best thing to do is to offer alternative solutions. By just condemning him and saying bad, bad, bad Trump, Trump, orange man bad, which fine if that's your thing, it's not going to help. And I'm into the helping game. So I was critical of Biden. I thought his decisions were really horrible, and I wish he would have been held accountable while in office. He should have been roundly criticized for continuing the Trump policy and the Doha Agreement. He should not have been given so many kudos for improving a shitty system to work marginally better. But that's in the past. Can't fix that. But what we can do is offer President Trump alternatives. And these alternatives are different ways to go about vetting people, different ways to ensure that the Afghans who are here are going to be the right type of Americans who are going to succeed in this country. Look, we can all argue, every single one of us, that they've already been vetted, that they're great, and why are you doing this? Or you can try to alleviate concerns as they come up. Okay. He is the president of the United States. Unless me or you somehow come up with a way for him not to be, and I ain't going to be a part of that type of shit, we're stuck with President Trump. Hey, them's the breaks. So the best way about going is trying to, in my opinion, is trying to find the Republican lawmakers who are willing to maybe step out, or the Republican voices to really step out and say, President Trump, let's make sure that we keep the Afghans who are vetted, who have American sponsors, who have people like me who go, hey man, I mean, I know this guy. I think he's pretty good, right? And all they want is a chance. They don't have a lot of social services. Most of them are struggling every day. They're grinding. I mean, they work hard, way harder than me, that's for sure. And I think that if President Trump can see these people as humans, right? It's not just in another person trying to get something, but as the very people who protected me, who protected Americans, right? For the last 20 years, he would realize that maybe Stephen Miller doesn't know everything. Just because you're a Muslim doesn't mean you're bad. And he, I think, understands that, but it's just sometimes the hatchet is easier than the precision weapon. I would just say again, yes, we condemn the executive order. We believe that banning all Muslims or everyone from coming to Afghanistan, while it's an easy solution to make sure that nobody like Sarah Judah and Haqqani makes it over here, maybe we shouldn't be allowing them to travel anywhere. It's just a little bit rich that we've allowed this guy to travel basically internationally, but now we're going to keep him from coming to us. A little bit of a a little bit of a hypocritical thing going on there, but I'll let it slide. At the end of the day, if you're an Afghan, I just want to say hang in there. We're thinking about you. We're praying for you. If you want to make a contribution for our non Afghans to our organization that really puts Afghans first and is really in it to make sure that they thrive. The Afghan American Veterans Alliance is here. I run it. General Halazai runs it. No one left behind, who is a much bigger organization than mine. They've been around forever. I trust them. Global Friends of Afghanistan, Next Mission, Rebecca Edmondson. Those are my four that I always tell people. Or you can hire an Afghan, or you can just go to an Afghan market and buy some food. But helping Afghans, I would just say, if you can't do any of that, write a letter to your congressman, do all the type of stuff that if you have the ability to do so. You can also subscribe to Grumpy Combat Veteran. We feed at least a couple of Afghans. We have an Afghan podcast editor. She's amazing. And we have another Afghan who's the executive director, who's working his butt off trying to make this thing go. So we are here for the right reasons at Grumpy Combat Veteran. We're here for the Afghans. Believe me, we ain't here for the money. If I wanted to make money, I don't know, I'd go do something else, that's for sure. But until next time, this is GCB6. Keep your head up. Keep your head up. This ain't anybody's fault. This ain't my fault. This ain't your fault. This is just the way it works sometimes in the world. Keep on fighting. Keep your chin up. Hey, and it ain't over till it's over. And even when somebody says it's over, I say that's when you really got to start fighting. So, this is GCV6. Until next time, I'm out.